Well, hi. My feet are killing me. You see, at the start of this week, I went to boot camp as normal. An hour of having grueling exercises shouted at you by a cross between the Terminator and Brian Blessed, in order to try and turn you from a James Corden wearing concrete trainers into something more resembling Chris Hemsworth, is actually pretty bearable given the camaraderie between the 6 or 7 of us who usually turn up. Except this week, no one came. Everyone was on holiday. So it was just the instructor and me, with nowhere to hide.
Watch it. That's it, mate. That's it, man. To the end. To the end. We can do it properly. Come on. Keep driving. Keep driving.
That was me there, dragging the instructor across the tennis court while he tried to stand still. So yeah. After all that, the last thing I needed was to stand around for hours waiting to jump up and down to loud music. But why would I possibly want to do that?
The Graticast. Episode 9.
So yeah, it was Sonisphere Rock Festival this week. I was only there for a day, but I still got to enjoy trudging through a mixture of mud, empty food packaging, and packaging-free food, watching my phone's battery head inexorably towards horror movie level, and of course, the murky, swampy forest of portaloos. Now, for those of you not acquainted with the festival lifestyle, a portaloo is similar in size and shape to a telephone booth, and should similarly mainly be used for urgent outgoing calls. And for those of you who are children of the 21st century, a telephone booth is similar in size and shape to a portaloo, and contains a mobile on a leash. Whatever you hear about portaloos though, nothing prepares you for that moment when you're standing in the queue of desperation and the person in front of you goes in and out in under a second and says, "Oh, I just can't, not that one." Well, this weekend, out of a combination of bravado and desperation, I accepted the challenge, but when I went inside, I was greeted by, I suppose, an Eton Mess of sorts. Not the dessert, I mean an actual Eton Mess. I suppose it was partly pride that kept me from bailing out like the previous portaloo punter, but also a bizarre sense of philanthropism towards my fellow man, as I realised that the hordes of people in the queue of desperation could do with having all of the portaloos in working order. So I took the plunge. Literally, because that's how these things work. You pull a lever which activates a plunger and sucks the muck away, and squirts out a sort of antibacterial gel that's lightly perfumed in an admirable, if somewhat worthless attempt to conceal the smell. Post-portaloo gallantry, I thought, how little consideration can people have for their fellow festival goers? Sonisphere should be about celebrating a mutual passion for music, not a chance to discover the love child of a tikka masala and the human gut. But as I delighted in a gasp of fresh air, I took some comfort from the fact that all the other portaloos seemed to be getting used without incident, so clearly the majority of humanity could show consideration for each other, and that cheered me up a little bit about it all. I didn't mention any of this to my companion at the time, of course, because I didn't want to spoil her fun. I was there with one of my best friends of all time, a lass called Cotton Pad, so dubbed because she has been the makeup artist of a few of the shows that I've worked on, and is particularly renowned for letting actors take away their own cotton pads. I invited Cotton Pad to join me for Sonisphere because, like me, she's a huge rock fan. She's also got a damn good voice on her and knew pretty much all of the words to every song Metallica chugged out. In the words of AC/DC, the girl's got rhythm. She was also just as keen as I was to get to the front of the mosh pit for one of my favourite bands of all time, Real Big Fish. Now, here's a photo we took of the stage. The on-stage photographer took this photo. Sedan. We could have gone down in the history of Instagram as being at the front of a Real Big Fish crowd, which I would have loved given that my ex-fiancé hated them so much. Oh, Tito, do you have to... Oh, I see. Did I mention my ex? Now, although Metallica have always been Cotton Pad's favourite band, this was her first time seeing them live, so I wanted to make sure we got a good spot in their pit. This meant arriving about 4 hours before they were scheduled, and towards the end of that time, our feet felt like they were standing in lava. But the moment Kirk Hammett came out and played that first note, the pain in our legs was forgotten, mainly because we suddenly had to fight for our right to use them. In that instant, the whole crowd surged forwards. I instinctively moved to try and guard Cotton Pad, but then the crowd bounced off the barriers at the front of the pit. Cotton Pad, who would be hard-pressed to beat Tinkerbell in an arm wrestle, started to sink. I could feel feet stomping on my calves, and I suddenly had visions of Cotton Pad's delicate form snapping under the weight of several thousand manic metalheads. And I thought, Eton Mess. I suddenly became very scared for her life. And that could have seriously ruined my whole Sonisphere. But when I looked down to find her and pick her up, Cotton Pad had a face like this. She was loving every second of it. It might have been terrifying, but it was also intensely exhilarating. The torrent of enthusiasm that people had for the guys on that stage. And she was a part of that excitement too. One of the fans who could thank Metallica for the opportunity they gave to vent frustration and anger and even fears in the form of rousing, cathartic ballads. Of course, we did make it out alive, but in the process, Cotton Pad lost one of her shoes. Still, not even standing barefoot on shredded plastic cups and half-eaten hot dogs would stop Cotton Pad from singing along to almost every syllable. At the end, when Metallica finally ducked off stage and the crowd dispersed, we found Cotton Pad a replacement shoe. Not exactly the right size, but enough to save her soul for the 90-minute walk back to the car. So there we were, shattered, bruised, Cotton Pad doing her best Cinderella impression, and all in all, feeling like we had just been on the same team as several thousand complete strangers. Okay, the music might not be to everyone's taste, but isn't it inspiring to know that people can be united by something as simple as the progression of musical notes, and that we can celebrate artistic achievement as well as, and sometimes even in spite of, wealth and possession? Perhaps we're not just a species of Eton Mess dumping individuals. Hey Tito? That day came close to being the biggest blessing I counted for at least a year. Plus I kinda like the thought that James Hetfield, the Prince Charming of Metallica, is now wandering the land carrying a dainty blue slipper, certain that it will fit the foot of his future bride. Well, James, if you're watching, get in touch. Cotton Pad's address is in my sat-nav. Now, lots of you have been on Facebook having a go at this challenge to find just 3 things to smile about at the end of every day for 5 days. And that's the kind of thing that the Graticast is all about. So here are some of my favourites from among our followers. Michelle mentioned her kids, and also coming to actually enjoy the flavour of tea without sugar. Ultimately much more healthy for you. Amy from Suffolk also mentioned her children pretty much every day, including her daughter's first poo in a potty. If you're not a parent yet, but you get there eventually, you'll come to realise why that gets a smile. And Claire, also from Suffolk, also regularly mentioned her children, and her husband, and of course, chocolate. Really great post, guys, and if you're keen to share whatever's made you smile, please remember to use hashtag Graticast or even hashtag GCSO, which stands for Graticast Shoutout. That makes it really easy for us to find, and then we can mention it right here on YouTube. Now for this week's Gratitune, we have to thank Eddie from somewhere down south, I think, for suggesting this, M People's Moving On Up. Be it the beat, or the lyrics, or just the nostalgia, it's definitely a good choice for some musical Prozac. So I'm going to leave you the link for it at the end of this video, but don't forget to suggest your own Gratitune for next week. So finally, thank you for watching. Before you go though, one last thing. If it seems like the world is caving in on you, just remember, caves are where you find diamonds. Stay thankful, and ciao for now.